Yo, what's up guys, VPirate613 here, bringing you gaming news on the Wench Catchers channel, where I recap the news within the week, give my opinions on them, and try to explain anything technical as well. Now for the first news, Metal Gear Solid Online is going to get a survival mode, but there's going to be a patch hitting MGS5 on April 5th. The actual mode though is a 6-player free-for-all with the objective of getting a win streak of 5 or more matches. The catch with this new mode though is that if you do not own the Cloaked in Silence DLC, then you will only be able to play survival mode 10 times a week. But if you do have the Cloaked in Silence DLC, then you can play the mode for however long you want. So it's good that they're giving us a chance to try it out for people who are not interested in the DLC, and it's nice they're adding things to the online. My issue is that to me the multiplayer was okay, it was fun, but it never really brought anything new to the table for an online third-person shooter. The new sneaking mechanics on MGS5 are fun to use on the multiplayer. Having those weather changes is very nice and very cool to play in when a desert just rolls in as well, and it just changes the whole game. But I can easily switch to a game like Ghost Recon's Online, which is free and is a lot more thought out. It's just nice that MGO is there, to be in all honesty with you. The next news that we have though is Valve has lost an Australian legal battle over Steam refunds. So back in 2014, Valve actually got taken to court by an Australian Competition and Consumer Commission because it refused to offer refunds on Steam. The thing is, Valve's previous policy stated that games, DLC or in-games items are not offered unless required by local law. Now Valve did change it so that you get a game refunded if you played under a certain amount of time, but of course this is not enough and doesn't represent Australian law. They stated that Valve made false or misleading representations to Steam users in Australia, including that they were not entitled to a refund under any circumstances, and that Valve itself was not obligated to refund games in cases where the consumer had not contacted and attempted to resolve the problem with the computer game developer. So the court was not in favor of Valve, and now Valve has changed its policy. So for any purchases made on Steam, you can get them refunded for any reason. We don't know how much Valve is getting sued for, but penalties will be determined at a future hearing. I think that Valve should have honoured Australian law a long time ago. I do have some mixed feelings about it, but at the same time you can't be selling your product in a country and not abiding by its law. And to be honest, they could have had different policies for different countries if they really wanted to. But moving on to the next news is that Watch Dogs 2 is going to have DX12 support. We don't have any details on how DX12 is going to be implemented within the game, but the first iteration of the game was not a pleasant game, and hopefully they're going to improve on this and just not follow the trend of adding DX12 support just to hype up their game. Moving on to the next news though, Microsoft's Universal Platform will support mods and will also support overlays, G-Sync and FreeSync. So to condense Phil Spencer's conference on this, basically overlays such as fraps are going to be an uncomplicated implementation, since it requires the creator to port their software from a Windows 32 program to a Universal Windows application. This seems a bit weird to me, so we'll have to expect an update from our screen recorders so that games on UWP won't crash, or are they just properly going to add support for it on UWP? It's a bit confusing to me, but hopefully they will put out something that will allow screen recorders such as Fraps, DX Story developers, etc. to update it so people don't crash when they do try to record games on Microsoft's Windows 10 platform. As for mods though, it looks like Spencer wants to have UWP have something similar to the Steam Workshop, but when asked about develop created tools or third-party mods, Spencer didn't completely rule it out, but third-party mods that change the code of the game won't be supported, which can become a big limitation to modding. Also, to add to my prediction of exclusive full screen support and 60 FPS support based on the Quantum Break graphic option screenshot is also confirmed. So I was actually right on my prediction. VSync and G-Sync support, exclusive full screen support for Windows 10 games, will arrive in May, so it's going to be ready for Quantum Break, it looks like, which is very good. Of course, it's nice that they are changing it because, you know, as we know, Windows Games for Live or whatever it was in the past was just a piece of shit, and it was just not good, and no one enjoyed it, and to be forced to play Microsoft's games on there was just not a nice feeling. And for them to be improving now is good, and it looks like they're trying to win over people with the community. So this is actually good. I don't see anything wrong with them changing, however slow it may take them, but if they are implementing these changes, it seems to me that they're finally listening to us. For the next news though, on Microsoft again, is that Halo 5 probably won't be coming to PC, as explained by Phil Spencer again. So Spencer goes into detail on how certain games were made for consoles in mind only, and how games such as Halo Wars were made for Xbox and PC in mind. And he states that this is why it succeeded on those platforms, because the developers had those platforms in mind. He further goes on to say it doesn't mean that there's nothing there that could ever end up on PC, but I'd much rather look forward with what our plans are. I think that Halo 5 would be a good game on the PC. I mean, as long as you port the keyboard and mouse controls properly, it's still a first person shooter, so I don't see the big issue with bringing it over to the PC. If market is your issue, as you mentioned, that you take into account if it will do well on other platforms that you release it on, I think it would just be a fan commitment, to be honest, instead of focusing on which market it will do well for. But at least it's not completely out of the question. Moving on to the next news that we have is that the Division's game-breaking bug won't be fixed until April the 12th. So there was a game-breaking bug in the Division where high-end gear, inventory items were disappearing, as well as players were getting completely locked out of the game. Ubisoft has this to say: we will be deploying a fix in update 1.1 on April 12th that should resolve instances of infinite loading backpack issue. Due to the fix requiring a client patch, we cannot deploy it at an earlier date. We thank you for your patience. This is quite a long way, and if you don't want to face this bug and keep playing the game, then I guess you'll just have to scratch your balls or play something else for the time being. Another thing coming to April 12th in the Division is that it's going to get its first free incursion update. The Division is getting 2 free updates this year, but the first one is coming April, and it's going to be called Falcon Lost, and it's one of the expansions from the incursion updates that's going to be coming later down the year, the second one. The expansion takes you to an underground water treatment facility that now serves as a stronghold for the Last Man Battalion. It's also going to offer you 4 new rare gear sets, and all of them tailored to specific play styles. That's going to also unlock the new talent when you equip them. It's also going to have 2 difficulty modes, which is hard, and this is recommended for players with a gear score equivalent of 31, and the other difficulty mode is called challenge mode, which is basically a tougher version of hard mode. The expansion does look like it wants to challenge players, since there is not going to be any checkpoints, so you're going to have to restart from the beginning if you and your team dies. This is pretty nice on Ubisoft for adding free expansions, which is going to keep the game going as players wait for it and also enjoy it without having to spend a dime. So good on Ubi for doing this. Now for the last piece of news is that we just got some new Escape from Tarkov footage. So if you guys don't know what this game is, it's basically another take on the survival aspect, but it's going to be a multiplayer RPG FPS with a lot of gun customization involved also. A lot of people have compared this game to Stalker, as it gives off a Stalker-esque feel, and it really does. The game is in its early alpha stage, and it does look very beautiful. The gun sounds and environment sound very realistic, as well as the realistic recoil as to the realism aspect of the game, which they are going for. I don't think I've seen a game with the actual feeling of hearing and also feeling of what an actual gunfight would sound like, and it just feels like you are really immersed in the world. It does look really promising, and hopefully it won't have its disappointments like H1Z1 or Daisy had, since the developers of this game are promising a lot, and I hope this game is actually going to be optimized well so we don't get performance hits when we do play it on release. But that's all the news for today, guys. I'm actually quite ill today, but hope you guys appreciate the effort I put into the daily uploads. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more daily content from me. But as always, peace out, guys.